Hello. If in this tutorial, I'm going to cover what you will need to do for Project 1, Geometric Shape Animation Project. And where you're going to need to begin with is doing some quick rough thumbnails of storyboard ideas, and I'm actually going to show you those in just a moment. But first, I'm going to get into Adobe Illustrator because that's where you're going to need to be making your shapes, okay? So anyway, in Adobe Illustrator, you want to go and look for more presets, and they have all different types of presets as far as documents. We want to go to film and video, and we're going to choose this first one, 1280 by 720, but don't double click yet or open that or create that. We're going to change this to 1280 so the height's going to be 1280, so it makes our document a square, all right? It's set up in pixels, it's RGB, screen resolution for After Effects is 72 pixels per inch, and then we can go and create. All right, so one thing I want to point out is that, and I'm going to pull all this stuff out of the way there for a second here, is that we have this checkerboard background, which really, for me, it makes it hard to work. So if you're the same as me, you can get rid of this. And what we can do is we can go to View, and what it is it's the transparency grid. We can actually hide the transparency grid under View and go down to Hide Transparency Grid. And there's a keyboard shortcut for it if you need to remember that, okay? So this kind of document comes in with its own template to show you, it's basically just guides. And they're very useful, so it helps you to place your shapes, okay? So anyway, let me show you. I'm going to place in my very rough thumbnails of what I was starting with the animation I'm going to create, okay? And these are real rough, mind you. So I'm drawing them as squares, and I'm drawing shapes inside them to show me what I'm thinking about. But I start off with kind of a square that's cut in half, and I got these two arrows. And what that's representing is they're going to be two triangles, and they're going to be close together, so they look like one shape. And then in the second frame, or so many frames down, like probably 20 frames in, or maybe even a second in, they spread apart, and they reveal a circle, and that circle becomes larger, and then I added a half circle on top. I should have really drawn another little panel showing that, but I just put it together because I was just really doing this for me. I wasn't doing it for the class. I was just doing this for me to help me understand this. And mind you, it's sometimes difficult, especially when you're learning this program and trying to figure out how to sketch out these things. So in my assignment sheet, I say that you should attempt this. Get started, work out some sketches, and then if you feel like, okay, I want to jump into Illustrator and just start building my shapes, go ahead, all right? But I just want to explain this. Now, in this frame here, what's happening is this will rotate, okay? And then I was deciding about putting in two squares, but I decided to have them come in this way, and then they kind of cross each other. And then eventually they go away, and another square appears in the center, and it overwhelms and takes over the composition, okay? And that's the end. So that basically at the beginning, it's going to it's going to look like a square. It's going to look flat, like a flat color, and it's going to end up with the same flat color. So that was my thinking, okay? And I'm going to drag this on over here, and I'm going to actually make a new layer. And so I'm going to actually start making some shapes. And you can put more than one shape on a layer, but the problem with that is if you intend to move them separately, going in different directions, it's best to create them on separate layers, okay? But if you're planning on moving several shapes together, because you could do that. You could make a bunch of rectangles and then make another layer with a bunch of rectangles and kind of move them, something like let's just see what that would look like. Like if we had, let's say, these rectangles here. I'm just going to quickly put a color in them so that we can see them. All right. And, oops, missed that one there. And then on another layer, I did another few rectangles. And they're just let's say they're a different color. And I've thought about doing this because basically what this would mean is we could, animate something kind of like this, so we could move them both at the same time. It would be kind of cool. So maybe that's an idea for somebody to play around with something like this. I just wanted to show that. All right, so I'm going to go and just delete these. And what I'm doing is I'm selecting this little circle here because it will select everything on that layer and delete it. And so, first of all, let me go up to my toolbar and grab my pen tool. And the way the pen tool works is if you click, 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 it will create a shape. Now, if you're not seeing anything, it might be because the fill is set to white, okay? And it may have a black stroke. You might be able to see it like that, okay? You can take the white stroke off, but if one thing you want to do is in Illustrator, if you're making any kind of shape, is you need to make sure what the fill and the stroke is. And the fill and the stroke is located here. So this represents the fill, and we can put any color in there, okay? And we're going to talk about color in just a moment, okay? And then this is the stroke. Now, for the purpose of my animation, I don't want to have any strokes. And you may want strokes with your shape. And I'm going to just do a different color here for the stroke and show you that in the stroke palette, and if you can't find the stroke palette, mine is located up under here, but if you can't find the stroke palette, it's up under Window and Stroke, okay? So there it is. And in the stroke palette, it usually shows it like this, but you can go show more options like that. And you can make this stroke as big as you want to, okay? So just to keep that in mind. Now, mind you, if I'm trying to change the color of the fill, I want to have this box, this square in front of this so that I can actually change that, okay? Because otherwise, if I'm trying to change the stroke and nothing's happening, then, we need to bring the stroke to the front, if I'm trying to change the stroke color. So these are just some things I wanted to cover here. And it's, you just got to kind of get used to this. You should have had a class that kind of covered this briefly, but in case you forgot, that's why I'm covering this. So I'm going to hit delete. So with my pen tool, what I'm going to do is on one layer here, I am going to make one shape that goes across like this. And fortunately, Illustrator shows me where everything is so I can make it nice and precise. And I'm going to, for my shapes, I'm going to take off this stroke. And it's best, if you're not going to have a stroke, to click on this box so that anytime you change your color value, it will be the same. And I noticed something here, and I didn't close it all the way. There we go. So when you're trying to close your path, and that means that, it's a shape that isn't open, because if I go to the direct selection tool right now, this isn't closed. So I'm going to undo that for a second and just get my pen tool. And I'm going to click down here. You see that slash there. And I'm going to come up here and see that circle. That tells me I'm closing it. And so let's just take this off again. And as I was saying, if you want to be just working with fills, make sure your fill's sitting on top, because otherwise you can accidentally be adding a stroke. And this happens to me all the time. I'll be working, I'll go, where's my color? And my stroke is set to 1 point, and it's putting in color in that, and it's so small I can't see it, and I get frustrated, and I look at this, I go, okay, that's what's wrong. So that's why it's good to keep these things up. This is always going to be up if you have your toolbar up, okay? But your color palette is something else to have up on your screen, and if it's not there, you can go up under Window and see there's color, and it'll bring it up. Now, I want to talk about color scheme for a moment, and I'm going to go go outside here. So in your assignment sheet, I wrote a link to this site, which is adobe.com create color wheel. And this is a great place to play around and find different color schemes, okay? And we got analogous, which are colors that are close together, you know. As you see, I'm sliding this. And the other thing you can do is you can come down here. If we start sliding color around, you'll change them all, okay? But basically, these colors work together. That's kind of how Adobe has set this up. So it's a great way to create a palette for your project, okay? And yeah, it's only creating about 5 colors here, but you can do more than one palette, or we can just make adjustments in Illustrator, which we'll talk about in a second. The other thing you can do is if you like a particular color, let's say I really kind of like this color here, and we want to use this color as kind of a main set, then it will change here, okay? And you can go through here and play around with the different color schemes. And like I said, you can go in and, you know, I'm just going to click there so it changes all those to that. Now maybe I might like this more or this one more, and I'll change it to that. The other thing too is if I don't like any of that, I can just sort of start dragging around. And, you know, I'm just playing around here. I'm going to lighten things up by dragging this over, and then I'm going to pick up, some different colors. And once you find a color scheme you like, you know, go through all these, and you can save several of these, okay? But once you find at least the first one, you want to make sure, first of all, that you're signed in here. Now, I'm signed in under my own personal account, not the school account. But this will work with your Kennesaw State Creative Cloud account. What we want to do is we want to make a new, and it says Save To. You see this plus sign? We want to make a new library, and we can call it, you know, Project 1 Animation or Geometric Shape Animation. You might just put Project 1 Animation. The only reason I'm creating this is because I should already have a Project 1 Animation, right? So we do that, and then we just hit Save, and it'll put it in there. Now, if you want to go through and find another one, you know, and you play around with the colors, and you say, okay, you know, I want another one that's a little different, just so that so you have more choices, you can do that. All right, so I'm just going to pick another one here quickly, and we'll save that in there once I find one I like, okay? Because right now these are a little muddy. Now, they don't have to be super bright colors. You know, they can be kind of close, and I'm just going to throw in an adjustment here, so yeah, that's kind of cool. But let's go and click on this and see how this sets. Woo, that's bright. That is really bright. I'm going to kind of dull that down just a little bit. And then save this one, okay? So that gives me a couple of different palettes in there. Now, when you go back into Illustrator, in Illustrator, these will show up, okay? So, see, I have my Libraries palette open. Again, if you don't have this palette open, you can go to Window and go find Libraries, okay? And, you know, I've got a Geometric Shape library and then After Effects Project 1 library. I'm going to actually use this one right here, okay? And basically, let's look at the other one too. Let's just see here. Well, maybe I'll work with this one. I'm just looking here going, you know what? Why not? Why don't I have some fun here? So I'm going to actually work with this one and build out with, so our first triangle is going to be there. Second triangle I'm going to build on this layer. And again, if your Layers palette is not open, you go to Window and find it under Layers so that you can see it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making another triangle here, but I'm selecting this one for a second. And this layer up underneath, and I just want to show you something. If you start to draw something else with your pen tool, this may occur. It automatically deleted that. All right. So one way to avoid that is to click somewhere outside of that, and it won't do that, okay? The other way is to just deselect it. And you can get your selection tool and click off of it, and then make sure you're on the layer that you need to make your shape on, and then we can and then we can start building this. So I just wanted to explain that because sometimes people start drawing and then they're deleting things and they don't know why. I'm going to, again, close this path. I'm going to wait until I can see a circle there, and I can't see a circle because this layer is sitting right on top, so I'm going to turn off this layer for just a second by clicking on that eye. All right, and then I'm just going to click it. See, I got that circle. Sometimes with these layers, if there's one on top of the other and you're drawing underneath, it won't give you those signals to tell you that you're closing your path, all right? So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. And you see, I just simply turned off this by clicking on this eye. So what I was intending to do is, in my animation, this is going to be coming in, and, you know, these two are going to spread out like that. So I want to kind of keep them together right now, all right? And they don't have a stroke on them. If they did have a stroke on them, I could take them off. It's hard to do it after you begin, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But anyway, let me continue on here. I'm going to make another layer and look at the next shape I need to make, and that would be that circle. So this circle, I could put it on top, but really, you know, I want it to be underneath, and I can turn off these layers temporarily, see that? And then come in here. I'm going to go over to my toolbar and look for the rectangle. Now, here's the deal. Up under here, and I'm going to right-click with my mouse here, anytime you see in Adobe this little triangle on a tool means that there's more tools. So I'm going to go to the ellipse tool. Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer. Now, if you build this on the wrong layer, let me build this on the wrong layer for a moment here, just to show you. So before I start to do this correctly, I want to show you that, you know, when you draw an ellipse, it just sort of draws it like this, okay? Now, if you want it to be a perfect circle, you hold down your Shift key. But if you want to manage where you're drawing it from, like say I want to draw it from this center here, which is really where I want it to come out of, then what I want to do is hold down my Alt Option key and hold down my Shift key at the same time, and then click and drag out. All right, and we'll make it just about that size right there. And I'm going to choose, you know, maybe this green color there. So that's going to be green. And all right, so these are both on the same layer, and I did that on purpose. But you know, this happens when you're working. Sometimes you'll start this drawing and you forget that you're on a layer that already has a shape that you don't want. So what I'm going to do is, the way to move this to its own layer is if I select it, over here on this layer, layer 2 here, is the circle which will select all the shapes on that layer. I'm going to deselect that. But also, if you've just got one shape or even 2 or 3 shapes selected, and let's say you've got 5 shapes on a layer, and you select 2 of them, this little dot will appear. And it's going to indicate that that is selected. And therefore, you can drag this to a new layer. And that's how we're going to move that. All right? So what's going to happen is these 2 triangles are going to move aside, and then this green circle is going to appear. All right? Now, let me go through here, and what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this circle layer, because I want to make a half circle using this. And there's a couple of ways to do this. One is I can click and just drag down into here where the plus sign is at. So I'm dragging the layer, not into the trash can, but into this, the one with the plus sign. And it creates a new layer. It says layer 4 copy, okay? And we can get more into naming your layers if you need to. I'm not going to be particular about that with this project, all right? But anyway, the other thing you can do is if you're on the layer that you want to duplicate, you can come over to here. These little 3 lines here that indicate there's more options here, and we can duplicate layer. All right. And so what I want to do is let's change the color of this, and we'll change it to something maybe a darker green. But I don't have it selected, so let me make sure it's selected. There we go. So let's make it a darker green, or I don't know, maybe make it this, just something totally different. Now, what I want to do is I want to make this into a half circle. So the simplest way is I'm going to get my direct selection tool. And then the direct selection tool allows you to select individual anchor points in Illustrator, okay? The the main selection tool here, that in the keyboard shortcuts V, the keyboard shortcut to get to this is A, is that you can actually drag and change your shapes. So if you may want to take a shape that you make and distort it, okay? And that's something I'm going to show more in just a second. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing I'm going to do is just click on this one point here and hit delete. And see, now I have a half circle. Now I'm kind of picky about open paths, and what that means is that, let's say I have another layer and I start drawing and this is an open path, I could accidentally click on it and start drawing, and I'm altering that shape. So when I say I want to close it's good to close your paths, is once I delete that, I can just get my pen tool. P is a keyboard shortcut. And if I drag over one anchor point here, and this half circle needs to be selected, I'll get a slash indicating that I'm on top of an anchor point. So I'm now connected to that. And then I'm going to just go directly across, and see that little circle there? That means I'm going to close it, okay? So now this shape is that what I was trying to represent, okay? So now I'm going to have two squares come over this, and I'm going to do just this really quickly, and I want to talk about other shapes, because I made one tutorial. I'm trying to make a second one today quickly, because there's just a lot that I didn't talk about. So let me make this into maybe, I don't know, this color here, really dark, and then we'll come over here and make this. They could both be dark, seriously. I know in one animation I made it so they're two different colors, but maybe I want them like this, okay? And because we're going to play around with transparency in After Effects. So I want to make these on separate layers, though. See, I made them on the same. So again, what I can do is I can come over here to my layers palette, click on the layer that they're on, but then go and click Create New Layer, and then select one of them, and then come over to this little point here. See, this point color has changed from the other one? And that's because it is the color of the layer, okay? That's what it doesn't matter what color it is. It's just that when it comes up here, it's going to be a different color. So the layer, the color of that layer is gray, all right? And we can change this, and we can talk about that later in another tutorial, okay? So right now I've got most of my shapes created. The only other one I want to make is a rectangle, or a square, I should say, because a square is equal on all sides, or is a rectangle that's equal on all sides, that is. And I'm just going to make this, it's on its own layer, but I want to make it the same color as those other ones. So this will be covering up everything in After Effects. If you're having a hard time understanding how the layers should be ordered, you can always change the order of them in Illustrator, but you can also change the order of them in After Effects too. So that's something to consider. Like maybe I might want this rectangle on the top. I'm going to keep it here. So anyway, let me continue on here before I get out of this and talk about shapes. So you see we've got the rectangle tool, we got the rounded rectangle tool, and right now it's not doing much of a rounded edge. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. I'm just going to make a new layer to experiment with, okay? And we'll put this on top, and then we'll delete it in the end. But I just want to show you all the options you've got as far as shapes you could build. So the way my settings on my rounded rectangle are not set up correctly. So, and by the way, you see this? I can make it a rounded rectangle by doing that. All right? But the other thing I can do is I can just click, and this will pop up, and we can change our corner radius to, let's say, 5. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's not much. If we zoom in here, you're going to see barely. I'm using my zoom tool here. Okay. But as you see, it's really easy to kind of just go in, because you can make any normal rectangle into a rounded rectangle. You know, I don't even know why they continue with that, having that tool there now that they have this option. This option is not always available. You can turn this off. All right. But anyway, let me delete that shape. The other thing we got is we got the ellipse. We got the polygon tool. So we can draw polygons. All right. And if you want different sides to your polygon and not just go with the default, if you, instead of drawing, if you just click, you can make it different sides, you know? So I'm going to make a 10-side polygon. So maybe you might want a 10-side polygon within your animation, you know? And then once I start drawing again, it'll keep drawing the 10-side polygons. Then if I wanted a different, I'm going to go to a different color here. If I wanted a different polygon shape, then I would need to click and then come down. Let's maybe do a 5 here. All right. So that's how you can create polygons. And again, you can go in there and make changes. You know, let's say I have a polygon like this, a pentagon, and I want the top to go up higher, okay, and I want this shape to come in. I can do that. You know, so I can do all kinds of things with my shapes. And I did a tutorial, I didn't even cover that. So that's why I'm creating a new tutorial right now. And I hope I'm getting done before class here. So let's continue on. The other thing I got is the star tool. Okay, now if you click, it'll give the option of the size of your star and also gives you the number of points, okay? So if you're drawing stars, you'll draw a 5-point star, but if you want, let's say you want to do, let's say a 6 or an 8-point star, then it can do that, all right? Now, if you want to make your star interesting and pull out, go to your, well, as you can see here, one thing we could do is we could do that, okay? And I just played with that just to show you that option there by dragging on those. And I'll do this again, but let's change the color of this quickly and come up here to our, if we go to our direct selection tool, you see this option's available, these little circles inside there. So I'm pulling it down and I'm creating that, which is a kind of a cool shape. The thing I wanted to really show you was this, and I'll just come down here and draw this, is that let's say you wanted a star, but then you wanted the points to be larger or out further. Oops. Let me get rid of this one behind it. All right, so if I select that anchor point, I can pull it up. If I hold down my shift key, it'll go straight up. I'll pull this one down, go straight down. Pull this out, straight out. So we can make all kinds of different shapes, okay, for our animation. So you're not limited to squares and circles and triangles, okay? You know, as long as you, I just want to let you know that, and that may give you so many more ideas of what to do with your animation, okay? So anyway, let me get rid of this layer because I don't need it, and click yes. Don't want that deleted. What just happened there? I don't know. I really don't know what just happened, but I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to turn on my layers, and then I'm going to delete this one. All right. I'm going to come down here to my drawing that I had of my loose thumbnail storyboard and delete it. Yes. And we're going to save this. Now, here's the deal. I have my own Creative Cloud account. And I can save it into my Creative Cloud just like you can with your Kennesaw State account. The only thing is that your Kennesaw State account, it'll go in there, but you're not going to be able to find it, as far as I know, because that's what I tried. I logged into my Kennesaw State account here at home, and it just did not do what my personal account did, because I tried to find my Illustrator file within my Creative Cloud in After Effects, and I couldn't find it. So that's why I'm going to show you about saving as, and we're going to go. You're going to save on our computers, on the computer, and then before you go on, we can create a new folder here. Okay, we'll call this Project 1, and I already have a Project 1 folder. Let's say Geo Anime something different. You know, you can call it Project One, animation, whatever you want to call your folder, but it's a good idea because you're going to need to be working on this and taking it with you, and also you're going to maybe need to go back and do some editing after you submit it. Okay, so that's why we want to keep this all in one folder, and we're going to put also our After Effects project in there. So now we're going to name our file. We'll call it, I'm just going to call it Geo, just to make it fast. You can call it whatever you want to, you know, as long as you know what it is. All right, so we'll do it as Illustrator 2020 and all these things, and that's good. Okay, now, I think I've shown you everything that you really need to know in Illustrator. There is some other things I could show you. Actually, you know what? Now that I've done all that saving, I'm going to just go and show you a few other little tidbits here, since I have a second here. And I am really kind of revved up about this because it's like, okay, I want to show you all the cool things you can do in Illustrator for this project. If we want to, we can make really some unusual shapes. And what I mean by it is, let's say we wanted to, you know, make some shapes, and I'm going to draw these shapes on the same layer here. And, you know, I'm just going to kind of overlap them. Now let's change these colors here, okay, just so that we can see them for a second. Now, let's say I wanted to create some unusual shapes here with holes in them or something, you know. I'm going to create another shape here. Create another shape here. All right. So what we can do is we can actually play around with our shape. There's a couple of tools here. One is your shape builder tool, and I really think this is really one of the best tools that they've come up with. And what we can do is we can select over everything here, and we can do a couple of things. One is, let's say we wanted to create our shape to do this, you know. So now it's all that green color, and this is the general shape, okay? So let's say we want to do that, but then let's say we want to delete these things, okay? So let's do that. Well, first of all, let's do this. I'm going to make a very unusual shape here, okay? So what I'm going to do is hold down my Alt key, and let's say I want to make punch holes, okay? And that's how I want to unite that. But, you know, I can just have some really unusual shapes here. See that? If I want to go in and really play with this. All right? So, like if you're trying to create, let's say, a circle with, let's say, a triangle on top, I'm going to deselect that for just a second. And just kind of make something just rough here. And it's going to look a little unusual, but that's fine. I'm going to pull this up. Then what we can do is we can select both of these and come over to our Shape Builder tool and just drag over. And that makes that shape. Okay? This will open up the possibilities too, you know, depending upon what you want to try to do here. Because, like I said, we can make a polygon shape with a star hole in it. Let's say we do it this color maybe, and then let's go and get a star and punch another hole through here. You know, that we don't need to change the color if we know what we're going to do here. I'm going to just drag over these shapes right here, and then get my Shape Builder tool. Shift M is the keyboard shortcut. All right, and then hold down my Alt key and see I can select that and make a hole in there. All right, so you know, I'll do one more just for people who are like going, okay, what did he do? And I'm going to make sure I delete everything. So we can even do it with, you know, if we make a shapes with our pen tool. Now, let's say we make some shapes with our pen tool. And then inside that, I want to cut a hole or do something like this, perhaps. Now, let's change the color just so you can see what I'm going to do here. But let's say I wanted to use that top shape there and get rid of that. Then the Shape Builder tool would come over here, and make sure both those are selected, and then hold down your Alt key, and you can get rid of that, and then you can get rid of this, and therefore you'll have a shape like this. Okay. Best thing to do is just play around, and get used to Illustrator, because Illustrator does a lot of cool things with just shapes. All right. So anyway, let me continue on here, and I'm going to show that and delete that. Everything's all saved. So yes, I'm going to delete that. Okay. So let me come over to After Effects. Okay. So we're going to do this pretty much the same way that we've been doing it. And if you've got some project open already, you want to go file a new project, okay? And therefore you'll bring this up. Then we're going to do new composition from footage. And we're going to look for that thing there. Because I created another one. Yeah, there we go. See, I've got several. Well, also you saw my monster silhouette one, which is kind of cool. But that's a different class. So I want to bring this over. We don't double click it, we select it. So I went to go through the folder to find it, and now we're going to go to import as, just like we did in the exercises there on the first exercise, that is, and go and click composition, retain layer size, and click open, and therefore we brought it in, but it's not there yet because we're going to double click here. But before I do that, let's go up to our composition setting, and we're going to set this for 5 seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to do something a little different. You don't need to do this because everybody's animation is going to be different, but I want my background color to be white because I'm going to turn, I'm going to have things that are disappearing, and instead of having a white shape and a white layer that I built in Illustrator for that, I'm just going to use a white background here. So we're going to set that to white. Make sure you're 30 frames per second. Okay. Now let's double click this, and this comes up. All right. Now I've got all these different layers. You see my circles there. There's that half circle. There's these. Okay. I did one tutorial and I've uploaded it, but I'm going to replace it because I was saying it to everyone. Well, from this point on, you're going to do your own thing, but I need to show you some different, at least transparency. So first of all, what I want to do is, what we have going on is we've got, remember, I'm going to turn this layer off, layer 8. Now, I didn't name them, but it's also the third layer in After Effects because I didn't name my layers over here. Like I said, I'm not going to get picky about that, but what we've got here is this happening. Okay, so what I'm going to do is on the top layer, first layer 1 there, or layer 3 as the Illustrator file, I'm going to go and hit the P key, and I am going to click on the stopwatch, okay, and then we're going to come over to about 20 frames here, and I'm going to drag this. Now make sure you're using the selection tool, because if you're not on the selection tool, it won't drag it, okay. So I'm going to drag this. Oh, it was this one. All right, I was a little confused there. So I'm going to drag this one down like this, so what's going to happen is, that's going to open up like that, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to layer 2 here, and we're going to do P for it. I could have done both of them at the same time as far as putting this down, but I'm going to do it this way. So the position at the start for both shapes are there, and then as I drag over to the 20 frame mark, I'm on layer 2. I'm going to move this one up here. I'm not going to hold down my shift key. You see this moving there? That's because I was trying to hold down my shift key. I just wanted that to go straight up so that this is what occurs. Okay? That is what happens. Now I'm going to turn off these 2 layers for the moment. We're going to use them later. Okay? And I'm even going to turn off this layer and just go all the way down to my circle here. And we're going to do scale. Okay? So I'm going to hit the S key. And I'm going to come down in here and hit the scale. And then come over to the 1 second mark. And actually, you know what? I did that wrong. I want to go here. Let's go back. And we want to make this small. want to make it invisible, so I'm going to go down to 0. All right, so I scrub that down to 0. Come over to the 1 frame. 1 second. That's what that represents. 1 second, and bring it up to 100. Okay. So now let's see what my animation looks like. Cool. Okay. Maybe, and I'm going to make changes here because you can make changes. You don't have to stick to what you've done originally. I'm going to move these up. Let me come over here so it helps me to there we go. By using the timeline indicator where you want things, it can help you snap these keyframes into place. So see, what's happening is this. Very cool. I like that. That's what I was going for. Okay. Now, once this happens, I want this thing to appear, but I'm going to drag it over. And what I mean by that is click on that layer, and as far as this, I'm going to click this over to here so that this will not appear until we get to here. All right? But I'm going to do something a little different too. I want it to fade in. So what I'm going to do is, on this layer, on layer 6 here, or layer 4 as it's written here, okay, I am going to hit the T key. This brings up opacity. All right, O represents something else. So that's why they changed this. To get to opacity, you hit the T key, okay? And anyway, what we're going to do is, I'm going to drag this down to 0 and hit the stopwatch. See, it's just disappearing. And then we're going to come over to, let's say, frame 20 here, and come up to 100%. All right, so that works very nice. See that? Ooh, see that? That's kind of cool. All right, now, next I want these shapes, layers 6 and 7, or 5, 4 and 5. And, you know, if you want to reorder your layers in After Effects, you can do it. You can move these things around, you know, just to show you. You know, you can move these to where they need to be, but mind you, I want these to overlap, so I'm going to do Command, or in the case of our PCs, Control. So now I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to drag this up and out, and let's actually bring these in here. So I'm going to drag this one here, and this one, drag that there. So they won't appear until then. But I'm going to do something else too, and that is I'm going to change their positions. All right, so we're going to do, I'm going to click both layers and do P, and then I'm going to deselect and hit one of them, and move one out like this, and click my stopwatch. Okay, and then I'm going to drag over to, let's say, frame, but the second, it's the 10th frame within the second. All right, and we can even move it afterwards. You know, move the keyframe once we do this. But I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and this thing's going to come down to, let's say, here. All right. All right, so we'll do that to the other one too. So the other one we'll go up to, and we'll drag it out. Okay, hit this, come over here, and drag it so it passes that. Okay, good. Now, what I might do is, maybe it's happening too quickly, so let's drag this over some more. Let's just drag this so it's a little slower. You know, I'm going to select both of these keyframes here. I clicked on one, and I held down the Shift key to select the other one. And I'm going to drag it over to to 300, which is 3 seconds. Now it's got a little time there. Now, the other thing I want to do is, I want to change the opacity of these so that they change. And so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to click on both of these, layers and do Shift T. Okay, and we're going to click both of the, well, we just click one stopwatch, because if both layers are selected and we did, Shift T by adding opacity, when you click on the stopwatch, it's going to do it for both layers. All right, and let's come over to here, and let's drag down the opacity. Let's say to 50%, something like that. Okay, so that's how we can change opacity. And we can also fade them out completely if we want to. All right, so now this is what's happening in our animation. And what I really want to happen is I want things to just sort of disappear in the end. So maybe we go over to frame, I don't know, 20 here of the third second, and we're just going to take them all the way out. All right, so there we go. Now let's go down to this half circle. Oh, I didn't animate the half circle. The half circle is supposed to rotate. So let's go down to this layer here, and what we're going to do is I am going to hit Shift R, come down to where, and mind you, I'm not selecting any other layers, just this one layer when I'm doing this, because this is the only thing I want to do right now. So now I'm going to click the stopwatch, and then I'm going to drag over our time here, and we might even do it here. We can change where the keyframe's at, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it. Whoa, see the problem is it's not rotating the way I want to. All right, so in order to change the rotation, I want to rotate from this point here. I need to go to this tool right here in my toolbar, pan from behind, and change the location of this anchor point right there. Okay, now let's scrub it. Rotation, good. I'm going to go all the way around. Go to 0, which is 360 degrees, because it has 359 and then there is no 360. So see, now this animates like this. Now it's a little off. The reason for that is because this pan from behind is not in the right location. So let me zoom in here, using my zoom tool, and make sure that this, on this layer, is right there. Now let's zoom out. I'll do it here. I want to fit. Now let's see. Oh, not rotating because I think I turned my rotation off. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Let's go down to rotation here. Okay. Now let's go all the way over to here, and then let's rotate it again. Go all the way back to 0. Right there. I think that's right. All right, let's see what that looks like. Good. Okay, I like the way that looks. Now, I'm having trouble now with this playback here for some reason. Okay. But I'm just going to keep going because I want to finish this tutorial. So, yeah, I don't know what my playback is doing here. Maybe because I'm on this. I don't know. Come over here for a second and see if I can find. Well, you know what? I'm just going to. Might be something simple. Usually it is. These things. But right now, let me just kind of continue because I want to finish off this. And You know, these little setbacks always happen when you least expect them. So now what I want to do is, with this rectangle, is it's going to appear. So I'm going to drag this all the way over to here so it starts to appear. Now I wanted that circle here, the opacity, to go all the way down to nothing. So let's go down to nothing there. Okay. So now it's going to do that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this just sort of come up. I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to do opacity. So hit the T key, and we're going to drag this all the way down to 0 here. And click the stopwatch. And therefore, when we come back over here, I'm going to drag it all the way up. And I'm on the wrong one there. All right, so make sure I'm on the right one here. Yeah. Click that. Make sure I'm on the right layer there. Click over here. Now let's drag this all the way up. Yeah, there we go. See that? And that's one way to treat that. Now I could also put scale on that, but I think this makes our animation look nice there. Okay. All right. So let me, first of all, we'll save this. So save as. We can name our project. We'll do project 1. Save it in your folder. Okay? And so this you will take with you to work another time. All right? And as I said, if there's a way to put it into your Creative Cloud account, it'd be awesome. It just gets difficult. You know, it just does not want to respond well. So I would say it's best I have a flash drive to take it with you. So anyway, let's continue on here, and let's just go add this to the render queue. Add to render queue. Our settings, I'm going to make this half. The reason why I make it full size to begin with, as far as 1280 by 1280 and not 640 by 640, is because, you know, if this is something that you like and you want, well, first of all, we can scale a movie down, but we can't scale it up. Okay, you know, so that's why you need to do these things. And if were able to scale it up, it would look really terrible because it would look all, you know, out of focus. So anyway, we'll do that. Make sure your frame rate is set for 30, and as you can see here, it's already uses the comps. This we don't really need to do anything to because it's set to that H.264, which is our MP4. And then we need to specify where you're going to see this movie. We could do it in the folder or on your desktop, and we'll just hit save, and then we'll hit render. And we'll come back out here to look at it and see what it looks like. Okay. I got so many of these little animations I made. There's something I need to correct there, but I want to end this tutorial. But you know, I can go back in and adjust things because obviously, you know, and that's why it's good to watch this. And I'm going to loop it. Now I'm on a Mac here, so. Not bad, not bad. I mean, I can do some things to it. That's why it's good to to look at as a movie and then come back in and realize, oh, I need to make changes here. You know, one of the changes I'm going to make is I'm going to drag over where these keyframes, where these things start to separate. Instead of separating so soon, they're going to separate a little later, okay? So good, okay? Now we're going to do let's export that, add to render queue. Best settings, half. Okay, I don't need to do anything to this. Now that I've done this once, but each time you need to tell where it's going to be saved to, okay? And see, just change the name, save it to the desktop. But each time, even if you had it set for the desktop or wherever you wanted it to, you need to do this each time in order to render it, because otherwise this little button will not become visible. So now let's take a look at this and see that this bugs me, but you know, like I said, I can go in there and keep playing with it. All right. You know, I did this before. I'm just going to go back here. Like if you're wondering, like, how would you fix that? Then we would go back, and we're going to just scale up these two things here a little bit. And let's go to select both these layers and hit S. And I'm just going to use this, but there we go. So now we'll see what that looks like. But anyway, that's how I would change that, okay? And anyway, I want to end this tutorial because I want to upload it, okay? So good luck with your project, and you will be able to resubmit if you have any problems.